Okay, so Joseph is got his brothers there. They're bowing down to him. They're asking for food. And he's like, "You're spies! You've come to check out the land so that you can invade it so you can see where it's unprotected." And they're like, "No, no, no, no! We came for food! We came for food! We're honest men." That's what the Bible says. It says, "We are honest men. We've come only to buy food." That's actually the food part's right. Maybe not the honest part. And he says, "Spies! You are spies. No, 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 no." And then he starts asking them all these questions. "Where are you from? Do you have any brothers? Tell me about your parents? Tell me about your family." So they start saying, we're 12 brothers. One of them is still home. The youngest one stayed home with Dad, and the other is no more. Who's the no more one? That's Joseph. And then he just keeps on saying, Joseph keeps on saying, "Spies! All of you are going to be put in prison. I'm going to put all of you in prison. I'm going to let one of you guys go home. And this is how I'm going to test to make sure you're not spies. The one that goes home has to bring back to me the one that you said is still at the house." Now, that's important to Joseph because Joseph had one brother from the same mom, and it was Benjamin. Like, Jacob had 4 wives, but he only had Joseph and Benjamin with Rachel, which was his favorite wife. So Joseph is really interested in Benjamin. I don't know if he's ever seen him before. He's probably never seen him before. He might have been in slavery the whole time. In jail. I'm not sure. He might know about him. But anyways, he hadn't seen him in a long time. So he's like, "This is how I'm going to test to see if you guys really aren't spies. Go back to your house and get that one guy. I'll send one of you can go home and bring home that one boy. Bring that one boy to me, and then I'll know you're not spies." So he lets him sit in jail for 3 days. And then I'm sure those 3 days were really hard on them. They were really worried, really stressed out. And finally he gets them all back, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to let all you guys go back home except for one. We're going to keep one guy in prison." And he chose Simeon. Make sure I got that right. I don't guess it really matters. Yes, Simeon. So I'm wondering if Simeon, since he's the one that got chosen to stay in the prison, maybe had something to do with him getting thrown in the pit. Maybe it was Simeon's idea. Don't know. The Bible doesn't say. But so Simeon stays. They bound him up, throw him into jail. Lets all the other guys go home. And Joseph gives orders. He said, "Fill all their bags with grain, and put each man's silver that he bought to buy the grain with, put it back in the mouth of the bag." All right? And send them on their journey. So all of them leave. They're going to go back home. They got to go face Dad. Tell him that Simeon's not with them. And in fact, not only is Simeon gone, they also need to take Benjamin back to the really mean guy from Egypt. So we'll pick up the story tomorrow. Love you guys. Okay, so when we left last night, Joseph has one of his brothers in prison, and all the other brothers are going home, and they're supposed to bring young Benjamin back to Joseph, and then Joseph will release Simeon. All right. So the boys go home. On their way home, they have all this new grain, so they're going to not starve to death. They're not going to die. And as they are on their trip, one of them gets down and gets his bag out from off his donkey. He's going to get some grain out of it to feed the donkey, and he opens it up, and there he looks, and there's the money. And he's terrified because now this guy was really mean to him, and now it looks like they've stolen the money. So he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is not good," right? So they go back. Joseph had said, take the food to your starving families. I want to take care of your families." And when they were emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was his pouch of silver. All right, so they one guy saw it on the journey, and then the rest of them, when they got home, they were unloading the grain, and every one of the guys that had a bag of grain had the money that they were supposed to pay for it with was put back in the sack. Joseph had that done, and now they're like, oh my gosh, we took all that guy's money and all the grain. He's going to be so ticked off. So their father, Jacob, said to them, so now they have to go tell Dad, right? This is what the man wants us to do. The man who was Lord over the land, this is how. Okay, so when they went to their dad, Jacob, they gave him the report, and this is what they said. The man who was Lord over the land spoke harshly to us. He treated us as though we were spying the land. We said to him, we are honest men. And he said, no, we said we are not spies, but he said that we were spies. We told him we were 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more, and the youngest is now with our father in Canaan. Then the man, the Lord over the land, said, this is how I'm going to know if you're honest men. Leave one of your brothers with us, take the food to your starving households, but bring the youngest brother back to me, so I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you can trade in the land. So they went back to the brother and to Dad, and Dad said, you have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is now in prison, and now you want me to take Benjamin. Everything is against me. So it's like, he's lost Joseph, lost Simeon, and now they want to take the baby. And Reuben came up and said, I will bear the blame. You can kill my kids if I don't bring Benjamin back to you. And Jacob just kept being stubborn. No, that's not going to happen. But the famine was very severe, and finally they had eaten all the grain that they'd brought from Egypt. And Judah went to Dad and said, Dad, he said, you will not see my face again, talking about Joseph, unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food. But if you will not send him, we're not going to go. Isaac said, why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had another brother? Why did you even tell him about Benjamin? And they said, we were simply answering these questions. Then Judah stood up and said, I myself guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible if I do not bring him back before and stand him here before you. And he said, if we hadn't been delaying this whole time, waiting on you, we could have gone to Egypt twice now. But we keep waiting for you to make up your mind about Benjamin. They didn't say that, but it says we could go twice. It doesn't say we're waiting on you to make up your mind, but that's implied. So Jacob finally says, okay, take double the amount of silver with you so we can pay for new grain and for the grain we didn't pay for before. And then they took a bunch of gifts, some honey, some spices, some myrrh, some pistachio nuts, and some almonds. And he said, and take your brother also and go back to the men at once. So this had to be really hard for Jacob. And he said, maybe the God Almighty will grant you mercy. As for me, if I'm made miserable, then I'm made miserable. So the man took the gifts, doubled the amount of silver, and went to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to his steward of his house, take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare dinner, that they are going to eat with me at noon. Then the men did as Joseph had said, and the brothers got worried because he was taking them to his own personal house. And the brothers said, he wants to attack us, to overpower us, seize us, and make us slaves. So they were terrified. So they went to Joseph's steward, and they said, "Please, sir, we have come here the first time to buy food, but at the place where we stopped at night, we found that the silver was in the mouth of our sacks. So we have brought it back to you. We have also brought additional silver to buy the money. We don't know who put the silver in our sacks." So basically they're scared. Okay, figure it out. He thinks we stole the money. We didn't steal the money. So they go to one of Joseph's helpers and they say, "Listen, we totally didn't steal from Joseph. We promise. We didn't steal. Here's like all the money. We brought it back, and here's more money. We didn't steal from him." They're thinking Joseph's ticked off because he found out they stole from him. So the man said, "It's all right. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasures in your sacks. I received your silver." All right? I think that was a lie. But he's like, "Don't worry about it. God just made that silver appear. I took all your silver." So the steward took the men into Joseph's house. He washed their feet, and he provided fodder for their donkeys. So what that would be like today is when somebody comes into the house, you offer them something to drink, you have them a real nice place to sit down, you take their car and you have it washed. I don't know. Anyway, he's taking really good care of the brothers. So the steward took the men into Joseph's house, and then they gave gifts, and they bowed down once again to the ground in front of Joseph. And they replied, Your servant, our father is." He asked them, "How is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living?" And they said, "Yes, he's still alive and well." And they bowed low to pay him honor. And he looked and he saw his brother Benjamin. So you've got to have in your head, imagine that you've been away from your brother or sister, Grace or Daniel, like you haven't seen him in 10 years, a long time. And you finally get to see him again. Would you be so happy to see them? Wouldn't it be so awesome to go give them a big hug? So, is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about? And they said yes. And he blessed him and said, "God be gracious to you, my son." And he was deeply moved at the sight of his brother. Joshua hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. So he just had a big cry fest. All day, I just can't figure out why. He's been crying and crying and crying. Alright, so he was crying, and the men, they were all seated down, and they started looking at each other. And they're all in perfect order, like from oldest to youngest. So something's up here. How did they know that you're older than me? Because I'm bigger than you and I look older, but yet you're, can't always necessarily just tell that people are older by looking at them. But they're all in perfect order. So they started, that's weird. And then they looked at Benjamin, and everybody had a big old plate, and he had 5 big old plates. He had 5 times as much food as everybody else. Alright, so we'll pick this up next time.